Voters in the Osseo School District will face a big financial decision this November. Kevin Miller has more on an upcoming bonding request.
New homes are popping up all the time in developing cities like Maple Grove. For Osseo schools, that'll eventually mean more students in classrooms.
And we would have some buildings in parts of our district that could nearly double in size.
This week, the Osseo School Board moved ahead with plans to bring a referendum to the ballot box. The $223 million request would fund major construction plans for the district's future.
We're at a critical moment in the history of our school district when it comes to our facilities. Sort of a crossroads, because your decision coming forward will really set the course for maybe the next 20 years.
Those plans could include a new elementary school in northwestern Maple Grove. The Maple Grove High School would also be expanded to meet population growth. Schools across the district would see security and classroom updates. According to district officials, if the bond doesn't pass, thousands of families would have their school boundaries change. Classrooms in Brooklyn Park, Brooklyn Center, and Osseo would grow increasingly crowded. The board was largely supportive of the plans, but some members were skeptical.
I got to admit, I still have concerns about the tax burden on our district, the fiscal responsibility of moving forward with this.
The board ultimately decided to leave the district's financial future up to voters at the ballot box.
Those are, for me, decisions that are personal for scholars and families. And so for me, just as a board member and moving this forward, I wouldn't want to be the one to make such a personal decision for families.
In Maple Grove, Kevin Miller, CCX News.
The 2023 legislative session is in the books. It ended in celebration for DFL lawmakers while Republicans were left complaining about the legislative process. House Speaker Melissa Hortman of Brooklyn Park called this session Minnesota Miracle 2.0, as nearly every DFL priority was approved. Hortman's Northwest suburban counterpart in the Senate, Ann Rest of New Hope, also reflected on her party's accomplishments. I had the chance to talk with her in today's Newsmakers segment.
It seems like this week's been a lot of celebration.
Indeed.
A reflection, but also celebration. Is that a good way to characterize this?
I think it is, and it's a celebration of Minnesota's children and families. And in every single piece of legislation, you can see that the governor and the legislature put them first. And I think that's going to mean a lot to my constituents.
Looking back at the beginning of this session and knowing the way the power structure was laid out, did you think that it would be like this? Did you think that there are a lot of goals and a lot of things that the DFL in particular wanted to accomplish? Did you think that this would really happen?
I didn't think we would have fulfilled such a complete agenda as we have, and also managed to end on time.
You mentioned bipartisanship. There's been a lot of talk of, yes, the DFL led a raising of taxes, and that's what the Republicans can use as fuel going into, for House members, re-election possibly next year. Do you see that as something that people will start to attack? DFL, senators, House members as well?
Well, they certainly can't say that about the tax committee. We have the most bipartisan group in the legislature, in the Senate, and we work together. There are many GOP initiatives in our tax committee. The two members of the Republican Party who are on the tax committee worked very closely with me. They were excluded from nothing in terms of bringing that bill together. They had a hard time voting for the tax increases, but in every other measure, they had full participation. That's the way I run a committee, and that's the way it's going to be next year as well. We have really spoken to and heard from Minnesota families, and that they are encouraging us to move forward with the values that are embodied in our bills, and certainly under the leadership of Governor Walz, who has been extraordinary in his support for legislative initiatives that are going to help us be a leader in the country.
On this Memorial Day, an Osseo cemetery that's more than 150 years old now has a new name. The Nigler Cemetery was officially renamed over last weekend to Open Gate Cemetery. Cemetery had been named after resident Rudolph Nigler, who donated land for the burial site. The nonprofit that manages the cemetery decided to change the name to Open Gate Cemetery to help increase awareness about it and to reflect the area's changing demographics.
We're quite a benefit to the city in that we take all comers. We're interested in all families, all race, creed, color, and religion, which is unique in this particular part of northern Hennepin County.
Some future improvements to the cemetery include an online database to find out more about who's buried there. On this Memorial Day, we honor the military men and women who have died serving our country. CCX photojournalist Dustin Scholl leaves us today with images in Brooklyn Park to honor those men and women.